Sigma Asia presents a conversation with Nick Hill, CEO of Premier Chain.
I've been involved in the online gaming space for way too long. I was a young man when I started, but so 25 years. And I've been involved in various ventures. I've set up a number of companies. Primarily, I was involved in the creation of Every Matrix, which is a large platform provider. I've run and operated B2C operations, as well as B2B, but more lately, I've been getting involved in progressive technology, and I spent quite a bit of time over here in Asia and looking at ways to bridge the gap between the retail offering, the traditional casinos, bricks and mortar casinos, and the online offering, and how they can operate as one rather than separate entities. So that's why I've been spending most of my time sort of looking at ways to use progressive technology to enable this, what we call omni-channel type solution. Right. Now, I've met with the majority of the land-based casinos here in Manila this week, or last week, I should say, and they're not as reluctant as they were, because they really do realise that they have to embrace the online space, because you've got certain operators that are now operating here under what we call a PIGO license, that have suddenly stolen the market. Now, in the Philippines, you've got quite a young demographic. Young demographic are connected to their mobile phones, and they get the thrill and excitement of casino games onto their phone. The land-based casinos can't tap into that market, but now they are very receptive to look at ways of how to increase their revenues and their market share with the online presence. The other situation that they have is they have to look at solutions that can marry the online to the retail solution, and my company enables that to happen, so that we can integrate with their incumbent systems, which is their sort of like casino management systems, which tend to be quite archaic and old, very expensive from the big systems providers, but work on a back system, so they have no real-time reporting. And then you've got the online system, which has real-time reporting. You know everything about the player. So it's finding ways to bridge that gap so that you get one single customer view across your retail offering and your online offering, and so that you can then interact with that player in real time. And that's what I spend my time here in the Philippines doing. Big question. Really big question. So because I've been speaking with the integrated resorts, they are conducting the beauty parade, shall we say?
Yes.
Speaking to the various platform or player account management platform providers. We've got a whole host of them here this week, and it's a tricky one, because again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Can that platform provider, online platform provider, truly integrate into the traditional retail land-based offering? Can they integrate into their food and beverage offerings, their retail offerings, their entertainment offerings, as well as their gambling offering? That is a huge question. There is technology out there, and my company has that technology that can bridge that gap. But to answer your question, they've got to go through the beauty parade. They have to then do their selection, put out their RFP, and go through that laborious process. If they've made the wrong decision, that's a headache, because to take something out after it's been established is quite a hefty process. It can be done, but it's a pain in the backside, to be brutally honest. I haven't seen examples of that. I've heard I haven't actually seen any examples because the IRs at the moment are doing that. They're literally going through the beauty parades as we speak. I've seen a number of the people that I've met with and saw last week actually here on the floor, walking around and sort of getting the look and feel for what is happening. Because, with the integrated resorts, a lot of them are their revenues are plateauing and maybe even declining. And the footfall coming through the doors into the integrated resort is declining. And as we know, 80% of the visitors to a land-based casino don't gamble. They're there for food and beverage. They're there for entertainment and other purposes. So if you've got the online, the land-based sort of plateauing, you've got online doing this, they're the revenues. So they realise they've got to tap into these revenues because they're losing their market share and that younger demographic to the online operators. So they have to get their house in order so that they can start to tap into that market and also use like real-time reporting and real-time marketing and real-time CRM to attract those younger players through the front doors. The younger demographic, by nature, as we all are glued to the phones. They're glued to the phones. They're used to digital wallets. They're used to digital currencies. They're used to, playing Candy Crush and playing games on their phones. They want that offering. But you can also use that as a marketing tool to get to them and say, incentivize them to come through the front doors. You never know, they might like it. They might like the social interaction of going to a casino. They might like the fine dining that they can find in a casino resort. And the different demographic will go to a different type of casino, because in the Philippines you've got integrated resorts and slot halls, and you've got so many different types of casino, from like the very, very high end, let's say Solaire, to a more mediocre casino being operated by Padcor, because Padcor operate their own casinos. So you've got a wide spectrum to offer to players, and then they can make that judgment call themselves. There's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of M&A, mergers and acquisitions going on. There's a lot of consultancy, because the industry is experiencing a resurgence, especially in the Philippines. It's dare I say, it's boom time. It's going like this, and the Padcor are really behind issuing more licenses for more development, because it's bringing and making the Philippines a tourist destination. And they've also got to take into consideration that Thailand is looking to regulate, and if they regulate and they build their integrated resorts with the likes of Wynn, Melco, these big Galaxy, these massive casino operators, they're going to have a fantastic offering in Bangkok or Phuket or Chiang Mai or wherever they decide to site their casino offering. But that will be a fully integrated resort with everything. Well, the regulation, as I mentioned earlier, in the Philippines is very, very progressive and is developing, in that they are encouraging more IR style operators, issuing more licenses in the country to attract more tourism, more revenues into the country, and more investment into the country. So that's going to be an ongoing process. How long? And how many licenses? I don't know. I'm not privy to that information. How many more PIGO licenses would be issued? I don't know. I'm not privy to that information. But in the wider region, we mentioned earlier, you've got Thailand looking to regulate. You've probably got something might happen in Vietnam. There's always been talk of regulation happening in Japan. Whether or not it ever happens, who knows? But countries, you've got sort of Pacific Island nations that are looking to regulate, because in my opinion, countries are looking to benefit from the tax revenues that can be generated from the land-based operation as well as the online operation. So that's the driving force, behind, the regulation of new countries and new territories, because they want the tax revenues. They're the first to regulate, and I think Win have won one of the RFPs there, and that's been awarded. Yes, they're the first one to regulate. They've got their online operation via a company called Momentum, which is, I believe, going extremely well. And I believe they're opening up for another 3 or 4 land-based operators. Will they regulate for online casino and sports? I don't know, but they've regulated for the lottery, then it's going very well. And it always comes down to, because I do a lot of work in compliance, and progressive technologies I've mentioned earlier, compliance and technology. The problem with regulators is they take too long to regulate. Technology moves faster than the regulation can keep up. So the problem is that the technologies move too swiftly. They've regulated, that regulation is already out of date. Okay, so the industry has to get together and inform the regulator about what we're doing for player protection, for example, for AML infringements, for affordability checks, source of funds. This is what we're doing. These are the technologies that we're developing and working with that can enable you to do your regulatory job and responsibilities much better. So that it comes down to collaboration and communication between the two parties, because, and we've seen it in some other territories where they've over-regulated and they've killed the market. So the players are then going and looking for, unlicensed sites because they're easier to work with. They don't have to give bank statements to prove income. They can get bonuses, and all these other, I can spin a slot wheel at a normal pace. So they start to look, it's not very enjoyable playing on this regulated site. I want to play on the regulated site, but I'll go over here now, because, it's like gambling's not going to go away. It's been around forever and ever and ever, amen. And, it's like water. It will always find a way down. So they have to embrace in my opinion, they have to embrace the industry. Has to get together with the regulator and let them know what's happening and what we plan for the future, so they can regulate accordingly to technology developments.